and welcome everyone to today's Cyber Talks Digital Forensics in 2021 Growing Scope and Emerging Trends. I'm Preethama and I'll be your host for the day. A few house rules for our audience. The session will be on listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 10 to 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any questions for our organizers or the panelists, do post them in the Q&A window. Also, if you're facing any kind of audio or video challenges, please check your internet connection or log out and log into the session again. An important announcement regarding the certificate of attendance for this session. Participants need to attend the complete webinar to qualify for the certificate of attendance. The participants should fill in the survey form in the attendees thank you mail and answer the 3 questions based on the webinar provided with the right answer within the same day. If these 2 criteria are met, then only the participant will receive the certificate of attendance within 5 to 7 working days after the event. With the rise of malicious activities in the cyber landscape, organizations need to hire more cybersecurity professionals, including forensic analysts and investigators. To secure their InfoSec architecture and detect the cause and impact of a security breach. This has paved the way for individuals from both IT and other technological backgrounds to utilize cyber forensic certifications to further propel their career. Digital forensics is an essential aspect of tracing computer-based crimes in cybersecurity. In today's webinar, our panelists are going to talk about what is digital forensics, what is the scope of digital forensics, what are the career opportunities for IT and non-IT background professionals, and who can transition into digital forensics and how. So without any further delay, please join me in welcoming our speakers for today, Rico Danielson and Sean Patty, as they deep dive into the world of digital forensics to give you the information that you need. Hi, Rico. Hi, Sean. Please start with the session.
Hello.
Hey, morning, everybody. Morning. Welcome, everybody. We look forward to hosting a great event for you guys. And my name is Rico Danielson, and I'm accompanied by Sean Pate. He's an incident response and a consultant. A little bit of background on myself. I can actually come from a wide variety of backgrounds, such as DoD, law enforcement, and also handling newsworthy cyber, retail, financial, and healthcare breaches as an incident response professional, also consultant. I actually play a key critical part in advising executives and also handling the digital forensics from an expert point of view and also representing court. Also, I'm a graduate of Thomas Jefferson School of Law and a U.S. Army combat vet. So today we're actually joined by Sean Pate. He actually is a very, very amazing incident response consultant that actually helped out quite a bit with the threat hunting and threat analysis for Redacted. Some other big names in there, such as Carvana, helping build out their SOC, and also same with McKesson, some great experience there, and also hoping to leverage them. Sean, good to meet you, and actually good for you to join us.
Thank you, Rico. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, what we're going to do is actually just go ahead and just dive right in right now. And, as right now, the hot topic is incident response. Everybody's running to the fire. Everybody's being a fireman, fire person, everyone that wants to be in the game. However, there's a critical element that I've noticed that a lot of incident responders either don't have the experience or they don't understand. And same with executive management, cyber executive management, and that's digital forensics, right? I was thinking we could spend some time together about, you from a technical perspective, provide a little bit more deep dive in regards to what digital forensics might look like. And I'll do that from an executive perspective. What do you say?
Yeah, sounds good. So high level perspective, I think a good definition of digital forensics would be digital forensics is the recovery, investigation, examination of digital devices. So I think the ones that are pretty common everyone thinks about would be like your standard computer, a desktop, a laptop, critical infrastructure like a server, but this really applies to, it could be any kind of technology device that we have these days. So of course there's mobile, there could be IoT like your TV, anything, your doorbell cameras, all the way into ICS in the industrial field. So pretty much anything that you can put on a network and data touches is something you could potentially use for forensics evidence collection.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm also seeing as well is, you have network forensics, right? Like the offshoot of a byproduct of a device, right? If it puts out a metadata, I've seen application digital forensics as well, where people stood up their medical applications and whatnot, and 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 actually helped out quite a bit and gather the information that way from pulling metadata. So it really depends on the um, the perspective of different digital forensics, I believe. So with that being said, did we lose audio by chance?
I think we're good.
Okay, great, fantastic. So with that being said, from an executive perspective, digital forensics might look a little bit different. Like I personally would like to know what am I looking for here? What does this mean to me? What is the scope of this digital forensics? Um, why is the packet size so important right now, especially trying to figure out if there is some data exfiltration? What does that really mean to me, right?
Yeah, at an executive level, I think executive summary type is definitely the information that executives are looking for when there is an examination or incident going on, and then um, the actual people doing the analysis may want a more technical view, like you mentioned, maybe a packet size of something that looks off in the network, anomalous activity, something that doesn't look like it should be in your environment, which is different from environment to environment. So yeah, you're definitely spot on with that executive level view.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things is I always I always help quite a bit other executives is the presentation of digital forensics and the evidence of obtaining the evidence. I was working a matter of interest recently, and the person goes, "Why would I want to tell anybody about this packet size?" I said, "Well, it tells the story. It tells the story of what happened, what source IP address is coming from, and what destination, and what's going there. We don't know what's in it, but we can tell you how much is in it." And they said, "Oh," I said, "at that point, you might have an indicator of compromise that some sort of massive amount of data has left." And that was very interesting because this specific person was more on the technical side, and they said, "Well, packets leave all the time. What does it matter?" I was like, "Well, it's a part of telling that journey of the story of the digital forensics and what's it going to mean to the end result, whether it's litigation, whether it's filing a claim with insurance, whether it's public notification, or whether it's something else, right?"
Yeah, I think you
So
bring up a good point. Yeah, you brought up the legal part of that, and what I've seen in investigations is that's very important. And sometimes there's a disconnect between um, the technical side and the managerial or legal side, and it's very important that when you are doing forensics or incident response, you're taking that into account, and that could be different from business to business. And there's definitely at some point where something could go to legal hold, and you may need to have the lawyers come in, and you may have to lower the scope of the amount of people that are working on the case.
Oh yeah, actually, you bring a very good point. Client confidentiality. I believe in this thing called Covell, where you can invoke Covell, and which is a point of confidentiality, and we can make the determination of what we want to disclose based upon what metadata factors are discovered. So very valid point. Um, it, what I like doing is actually diving in with the technical perspective of a engineer like yourself or like a consultant like yourself, and really understanding, saying, okay, do we really need to disclose this, or do we have to disclose this? And the reason it's not we're not being transparent, it's more so, um, what is the business impact can it be here? So absolutely very interesting. As as I've worked with many people before in the past, as you and I work with many people before, but as we work with different people, anywhere from senior executives all the way to network administrators and healthcare perspectives. And one of the things I think you and I both notice is that the career fields, how people got there, actually is very different than everybody else.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I've noticed, I think you and I were on a project once, and this person was super non-technical, more risk-based approach, been there for many years. And I always ask, I said, well, how did the person get here? Not in a negative way, but it's more so, I wonder how the person got here. And I think being associated and driving that message, driving the project of digital forensics, and driving the discovery of digital forensics is how that non-technical person of an IT background got there.
Yeah, and that's the great thing is that we all work as a team, right? So there's people that may be super in the weeds technical. There may be people that are more project managers. There may be people that are more customer facing. But at the end of the day, there are plenty of opportunities in digital forensics and incident response for a diversity range of people. And at the end of the day, we all work together to get the job done. So that's one of the great and exciting things about this career field.
Absolutely. So, one of the questions I'd have to ask you, because you and I are both digital forensics personnel, we're both incident responders. However, we come from a little bit of an educational background, right? Difference. So, um, I come, you know, I went the traditional way of like get a 4-year degree, get a couple masters, get a law degree, and then some certifications. Um, is there a basis of merit, or is there an argument to be made that one is better than the other?
Oh, this is a juicy topic, um, and I think you're going to get people on both sides of the spectrum. You're going to get people in the middle. I believe I'm in the middle. Like you, I have a traditional background. I originally went to school for computer networking. I didn't get into forensics until probably the last 4 or 5 years. But from what I've seen, I think there's some great college programs out there that people can go to learn digital forensics. I feel like anything that's a technical field, you can also self learn or learn on the job. I don't think there's a right answer. I think there's a right answer for every person. So with that being said, um, how I see people getting into the career field are, as mentioned before, university. There's certification and training programs. There are self-study methods. Um, with the internet and the amount of free resources that are out there, I've witnessed people self-study into infosec and digital forensics specifically. There's capture the flag opportunities out there. So if you can find those on the internet as well, or if you go to a large conference, they're free. You can hone your skills in a CTF. I personally know of someone who placed first in a CTF, and afterwards they were asked to work at a very well-known consultancy. So that was one.
Nice.
Yes, yes, great way to get your foot in the door. Of course, that is um, maybe not the rule, but it does happen. And then, of course, another thing that's important is networking and finding a mentor. Um, if you're not opening doors for yourself and meeting people and getting near the opportunities, it really doesn't matter how good you are at something, you're not going to get to shine.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring a very fascinating point in regards to traditional and also non-traditional self-learning. Um, you know, I had the opportunity to kind of go the law enforcement route as well. And I've seen where, law enforcement actually has quite a bit of tools and a budget, and they can send you training, they can do all this good stuff. Or on the other side, now that I'm on the civilian side as well, budget's big, right? Tools, non-tools, what can you do for free, whatnot. And a lot of this is self-learning. So I think a lot of people, what I've seen is one, not have the fundamental basis of it and kind of veer away from it, or some people just really lean into it. And I remember this one specific person. She works for one of the biggest digital forensics vendors right now, and she's a digital forensics consultant expert now. And I remember meeting her, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago when I first started my business in digital forensics, and I was just doing cell phone dumps at that point. And she said, she came to me, she goes, I have no experience, I have no education, I have I have no clue what I'm doing, but I know I want to do it. I said, fantastic. So her and I would meet up once a month and whatnot. And I wasn't mentoring, it's just more so I just want to see her be successful. And I remember, watching her career growth, going from this agency to this agency, private consultant, and then also now giving speeches and now leading sales engineering, stuff like that. And I was like, wow, this person had no technical background, no educational background, but they had the motivation, they had the discipline, the fortitude, and the grit to get after it, get some. And I was so happy to see her doing amazing things. Now she's an executive at a digital forensics provider, if you will. And it was pretty amazing to see that, I think. You know.
Yeah, that's a great success story, and it sounds like you did do a little bit of mentorship, whether you realize it or not. So that's awesome. That's super
Yeah.
important, and that's one thing that I really enjoy is I like helping people as well. And if I can help someone get into a career field they love and it's rewarding, and I can help them succeed quicker than it took me to get to where I am at, I love seeing those success stories.
So I have a question. When I look at the current marketplace, I see a lot of people saying either I can't get a job, right, or nobody's hiring, and I kind of find that kind of weird because, um, if you're a young professional, you should have no reason not to get a job because there's so much work to be done, especially incident response space. Are you seeing the same thing, or is it a little bit different?
I've seen that sentiment out there. I can speak from experience that I've had opportunities that I have not gotten that I felt like I was qualified for or a good fit for. Um, it's there's a lot of opportunity out there, but it's also a tough market, right? So
Yeah.
you may not interview well at a place, or maybe they don't think you're the right fit. Um, and I think a lot of this comes back to networking too. Um,
Hmm.
you need to be in a good place to get that door open. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I believe a large percentage of jobs that are filled come from internal employees' word of mouth or recommendations. So if if 500 people interview for a role or apply for a role, they may already have a top five picked out prior to that job posting getting out there. So
Yeah.
one thing I've done in the past is if I see a job posting I like, I may look and we'll say on a job posting board. If the recruiter is in that title, I may reach out to that recruiter directly and introduce myself and kind of start
Yeah.
that process of getting my foot in the door and getting my name remembered. I may reach out to people that already work at the company that have a title similar to the job I'm looking for. Um, so so that I think is a little more successful than just throwing your application in the ring, so to speak, because you now have someone, you may not even know them, but now you have someone on the inside that is advocating for you in some way, putting your name in the hiring spaces purview.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I kind of saw recently was actually a working session, and I had the honor and opportunity to actually interview a pen tester. And this pen tester, part of the interview process was show me how you do this, and show me how you do that. And I'm not a pen tester. I understand it and thoroughly appreciate it, but in the same aspect, I kind of flipped the script and I said, hey, from an incident response perspective, with your findings, let's say you're in the middle of the pen test, let's say you're in the middle of getting after it, and all of a sudden you find something. You're like, oh shoot, I found a pre-stage executable. What do I do? From an incident response, now put your incident response hat. What does that look like? And that being said, one of the things a long time ago when I was interviewing for positions, I was actually gonna work for a company in Dubai, and they said, hey, before we start getting rolling, I need you to prepare a deck. I need you to walk me through the process. And they just gave me this much information. It's malware. Go with it. I found that very very fruitful for myself because that actually allows me to showcase my skill set, my presentation, my command and decision presence, and also drive the journey of that. What do you think about those working sessions?
No, I think those are great. I think you bring up a good point in that um, you mentioned pen testing, which would be considered more on the offensive side of security. But a pen tester will have a viewpoint if they run across a finding that this is not normal, because this is something that I would do in a pen test. And the blue team side or the digital forensic side can also learn from the offensive side and vice versa. So different sides of the house, so to speak, but should be working closely together and can better each other.
Absolutely. I think we call that purple teaming, right? Where
Right.
we bring everyone together, the SOC, IR, forensics, and it's very interesting to kind of do those. I call them jujitsu drills, right? We know a punch is coming, we know a grapple hook is going to come. That's fine, fantastic. How we're going to react to it, how we're going to leverage the tools, our techniques, and also our processes, right? Um, I think it's a great idea if you can get yourself in a working session and make that transition into digital forensics. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. What are some other opportunities or transition points a person can do to get into digital forensics, and what is that going to look like?
So we had spoken earlier about technical and non-technical background. I definitely believe having a technical background will help learn digital forensics quicker. So
Hmm.
some technical roles I could see transitioning could be IT help desk, desktop support, systems and network administrators, engineers, pretty much anything,
Gotcha. Yeah.
pen testers. You'd mentioned offensive security. Pen testers would be a great technical role to transition into. And then non-technical, I mentioned before the education and the certifications and the CTFs. Um, you can get technical through those ways and find an opportunity to come in as maybe like a junior forensics investigator. And then once you actually have some time on your resume, then move into a more full-time role or more senior role. So I don't think having technical skills should be a barrier or is a barrier to a technical role. There are ways to get there. And then there's
Yeah.
also the non-technical roles, right? So like a project manager or that side of that. You mentioned legal. So I think you probably have a little more knowledge on the non-technical roles from a legal perspective. So can you talk to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So from let's just say I'm starting to see a career transition from a lot of attorneys coming from the legal side or admin assistants and also legal professionals transitioning to cyber, and where they find themselves is more of the uh, handling of the incident and handling of the digital forensics evidence and showing them in a Bates manner, whether it's going to be a submission to the court, submission to motion, supplemental evidence and whatnot. So there is for sure a different means and modality for somebody who is non-technical. What I do is actually put them in different pillars, right? Technical, non-technical, and tools. And what is the fastest way to achieve these things, whether it's a scale rating 1 through 10? And if we want to achieve a rating 10 on the tools, technical, and also the personnel, um, what do we know, what do we don't know, and how we can close those gaps? That would be the best recommendation that I think would help people out and deliver that content and also deliver that success as well. The other thing that I'm noticing is being around. This is kind of a little bit of a digital forensics off topic, right? Um, I met plenty of digital forensics people transitioning into the workforce from incident response, executive management, whatnot. However, the key component is a presentation and personality. Um, and the reason I'm kind of harping on that is because sometimes, as a digital forensics expert, you're going to have to bring the bad news. Hey, you've been hit with ransomware. Here's the evidence. I'm so sorry. You got to pay $1 million. Or here's the compelling evidence in which is going to be a bona fide conviction against you. I'm so sorry. Here it is. However, delivering that sense of messaging in a positive manner and also having a great personality in digital forensics, I think is going to actually spread the success of for a very long time. Because from my experience, I've met many digital forensics professionals that have lack of personality or just are not nice, and now they're just out of work. So overall moral of the story is be a nice digital forensics person.
Right. So I like to call this customer service. And to circle back to the earlier question about getting into this, another role that I think is great for digital forensics consulting is people with customer service background. And I mean, that could be anything. It could be sales. It could be a bartender or a server. If you can react to people of all different personalities, like you mentioned, some are nice, some not so nice, and you can do it with a smile, and you can navigate those conversations, you're ahead of the game. Super important. We're a very technical field, but this is not, you're very customer facing as well, and you need to play nice in the sandbox with other teammates in outside teams. So great point, Rico. Super important to bring that customer service face.
Absolutely. And so that being said, that's kind of where it brings a transition. I think we're kind of running up early on time. That brings a transition of the topic of digital forensics and how to get there and what it is and the scope of it. So that being said, we would like to turn it over to the moderator and say, are there any questions that we could field that we could provide any value to?
Hi, Rico. Hi, Sean.
Hey.
Hey. Okay, so we are going to take the questions now.
Yeah, I know we wrapped up kind of early, a little bit early because we hit all the topics, and we also provided quite a bit of the storytelling and journey story as well. And we just want to see, we want to provide a little bit more sensationalism to the event. So, is there any way we could possibly take a question? Is that okay?
Sure, no problem. Okay, so before we go to the Q&A session, this session is in sync with EC Council's CHFI program. EC Council CHFI maps to the forensic investigator and the consultant digital forensics. Anyone with the CHFI certification is eligible for 4,000 plus job vacancies globally with an average salary of $95,000 per annum. So if anybody is interested to know more about this certification, please do take part in the poll that will be on your screen right now, and let us know your preferred mode of training, and our concerned person will get in touch with you. So with this, Rico and Sean, I'll be starting with the Q&A session.
Okay, wonderful.
Great. So the first question is, what is the difference between a SOC analyst and a digital forensic?
Oh, that's a great question. So go for it, Sean.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So the question was, what is the difference between a SOC analyst and digital forensics? I've worked in both roles. So SOC analyst, you typically, you're looking at alerts that come in and you're starting an investigation, and not all SOCs are the same. Some SOCs, you may be just looking at the alert and passing it to another team or a more senior member. You may actually be doing the deep dive investigation of that alert and looking in the data and putting together a story to package to whoever may need to do incident response, or maybe it's a false positive. Digital forensics, you are more specifically looking at the deep dive data on a device. So an example may be looking at artifacts on a Windows host. You may be looking at network traffic analysis. You could be doing images of a device. So SOC analyst, depending on your role or where you work, you may also be doing digital forensics. It just kind of depends. But I think for the most part in the industry, that the line difference is SOC analyst, you're looking at alerts, you're reviewing the events, and then if it becomes something that needs a deeper investigation, someone that does forensic analysis would be getting your initial data points and then digging into the artifacts from there.
Absolutely. I think both SOC analysts and digital forensics. There's a progression, I believe, from SOC analysts to digital forensics if they want to. I believe both are critical to the investigation, and to there's always going to be a point of inception. That's to me, that's going to be always going to be the SOC analyst, and they provide quite a bit of technical resources to the digital forensics, because there'd be certain data elements that we as forensics person need to go back to and say, hey, what did you see here? Talk to me about that. Tell me about this alert. Kind of let's do a little bit of deep dive there, right?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Rico and Sean. And as we have a lot of time, we will be, I would request all our attendees to post a lot of questions, because we are going to have a good 15 minutes of Q&A session. So the next question is from Abhay, and he's asking, what kind of work would a digital forensic role imply?
Good question.
Like, what kind of work will be done if someone was a digital forensics? This is his question.
Yeah, absolutely. So what type of work? I'll give this one a shot. So really depends, right? Not all incidents or not all digital forensics requests are created equal. So that being said, what will happen is you might show up on the spot and say, hey, Rico, or Sean comes to me and says, hey, Rico, we have an alert. We have this thing going on. We have some network telemetry. It's calling out to Russia or whatever the case may be. We definitely need some help to visualize this. And then we find a box, right? We say we see a box that's being owned or being used as a pivot point. So it really depends on that. If it's a financial services company, you might be required to do certain things. If it's a healthcare company, it might be certain things. Retail is a little bit different. Depends on what you're kind of looking for and what type of metadata you're looking for. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, for incident response perspective, I definitely agree. There's also more on the legal or civil side as well. So you may be doing a forensic image of a cash register or some other device to find out when the transaction was made. It could be part of a civil suit. Someone may have gotten hurt, and you may be trying to investigate if from the defense or the prosecution side, if you can put that person at that business at a certain time. That's actually a question that I've seen come up quite a bit from the on the business side of not being like working in a company. People get worried that, oh, I'm a SOC analyst or I'm doing forensics. Am I going to have to go testify in court? So for some people, that's anxiety inducing. They don't want anything to do with court. I have yet to see anyone working in a SOC or forensics at a corporation have to testify. But you come from a legal background, Rico, so I believe you have seen that happen on those type of cases, which are kind of separated from a business perspective.
Yeah. So I think you and I a long time ago were working a couple of forensics cases, and we're doing some cell phone dumping, right? And one of the things the attorneys wanted to talk to us, and it was I'm a legal professional myself. I don't even like talking to attorneys, and so to get on the phone with them and say, hey, what's going on? How can I help you? This, that, and the other. From a SOC perspective, I've only seen twice where it was 3 years later, they actually brought the person back in and they said, hey, during this breach, we noticed that you had this alert. Tell us about it. And it was very interesting because the person was like, well, that was 3 years ago. What did the notes say? And they're like, well, the notes say this. Well, then that's what's in the notes. It was very interesting to see that. And then number two, very rarely will you be deposed. But now as a digital forensics person, you may be deposed. When I was working for a big project for Department of Justice at one of the financial firms for a merger and acquisition project, they came in, they said, hey, we need about 500 emails, put on legal hold. We need to do discovery on them, and it took months and months and months. Finally, the Department of Justice came down and said, "Hey, we have some questions." And being a digital forensics person, that's just kind of who you deal with. You answer the questions. It's really non-intrusive. It's more so, hey, we have questions. How'd you handle the forensics? How did you do the legal process? And you just point them to your process, your procedure, your control, and that way. So it's pretty fascinating how to navigate around that. And don't be afraid of it. Um, Nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, 3 years later, they may not be there anymore. You may not be able to find that person that wrote the notes. So, yeah.
Yep.
So with ransomware making the headlines right now. The incident response side of digital forensics is super hot, and everyone's reading about that. But there's also some other parts too. You may be doing insider threat investigations. There may be people that
Oh yeah.
are getting ready to leave the company, and they're trying to take a bunch of data with them. So you may have some data points on all of a sudden person A is, typically we see 10 megabytes of traffic per day. All of a sudden there's a gig or something like that. So that may spike an alert. You may be investigating that. Digital forensics, you may also be investigating criminal activity. You could come across some in the business. Some people do stuff on their work computers that they should do on their home computers. Not that you should do anything bad on your home computer, but then there's also the justice side too, right? They find stuff, and then they may be investigating people's personal devices for a legal matter. So there's all types of different investigations that can happen with digital forensics.
Yeah, you actually brought up a really good one. Insider risk or insider threat. Depends on where how your company chops it up and whatnot. I think that's a new hot topic, a very sexy, um, industry right now, and a lot of people either don't know how to do it or barely know how to do it. I believe you're a part of an insider risk team yourself or a threat team, and it's like you're fusioning everything together. You have digital forensics, you have a SOC, you have vulnerability management, then you have a little bit of compliance, a little bit of investigations. You bring them all together and you assign these risks to people and say, hey, I think this person is a bad person. I'm not sure. And then you kind of just start diving into that. I think insider risk is going to be the new cool kid on the block, right?
Thank you so much, Rico and Sean. That was a really, really great and informative answer, and I'm sure our audience member has definitely got the information that he was looking out for. The next question is from Ernest, and his question is, what are some of the tools to get started with digital forensics?
Good question. Sean, you want to take that one?
Sure. There's both paid and unpaid. A lot of the paid tools are super expensive. You can be looking at X-Ways Forensics. What's the one that you just got, Rico?
Oh yeah, I have Axiom and also Encase.
That's right, Axiom and Encase. Those are well-known professional tools that the industry uses. So another place to look to find out what tools are available are look at job postings and see what different jobs require. There's also a lot of open source tools which you can get for free. There's FTK Imager. Eric Zimmerman has a lot of tools out there. You can just Google Eric Zimmerman GitHub. You'll see Zimmerman's tools. There's Volatility out there for memory analysis. There's Wireshark for network if you want to look at PCAPs. Another one I like for network is Network Miner, and that'll work for both Windows and Linux. It's a great one to look at PCAPs as well. And there's native tools too, like with Windows, there's Event Log Explorer. So, great one too, Autopsy. Autopsy is a
Yeah.
free one. So there's a lot of tools out there. I definitely don't know all of them at all. So I typically, if I'm doing an investigation and I may not know what I'm looking for or exactly how to get the data, I may just Google it and see what's out there and kind of dig around and find a tool that fits my need.
Yeah, interesting. So from a paid subscription, I would say Encase, Magnet, Forensics. Kroll, they have a really good one. They have KB Action Buy, F Response, and those are some pretty good ones. So FreeWill's Autopsy, FTK Imager, you can get away with doing stuff, but at some point in your career, you're gonna have to maybe buy a tool just for continuity purposes. A lot of these free tools have a disclaimer that says, if you do the work, we're not representative of any legal damages. So remember, you're going to assume the risk and liability, and you're going to hold that back. So just be mindful of that. Also, understanding the techniques and process. There's something to be said of understanding, screen captures and also figuring out where your local registries are at, and kind of telling that picture and understanding those things is another great tool to have. The tool of storytelling and telling the executive how that happened. I know it might not be the cool, sexy, technical tool that we're asking about, but I'll tell you right now, finding the data is about 30-40%. The rest is telling the executive, telling the legal person, telling law enforcement how and what this metadata means.
Yep, and Windows has a lot of artifacts that point to evidence of execution. I'm not as familiar with Linux, so I don't think they have as many. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're looking for, right? We're trying to prove that something happened on the system and trace it back to what or who.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Great, thank you, Rico and Sean. I'm sure, Ernest, you have got the answer that you were looking out for. So the next question that I have, reading the question, I can say that this is more given to asked an advice. This person has asked more of an advice from Rico. So the next question is from David, and he's asking, what is the best way or ways to overcome the education gap when you have law enforcement experience with no formal degree? I am pursuing certifications through a law enforcement and military program. Uh, uh, however, there does not seem to be a one for that experience in these job postings. They all seem to set the minimum bar at a 4-year degree, and that is not
Yeah.
feasible for me to attain at that moment. So kindly advise.
Yeah. So, my heart goes out to you because I was in that position not too long ago. This is before after the military. I was an operator as well, and I had zero education, and I knew I wanted to do digital forensics. I knew I did. So the best thing you can do is, so check this out, right? I was actually an operator. I was making, I think, $180,000 a year. I actually skinned my teeth and I took a job doing IT, network engineering for multiple people, and I was making $40,000 a year. That was really, really tough. I knew I needed to do it. This is before I met Sean, and I think Sean would agree with me. I made the decision for myself. I said, I need to get my hands dirty. I need to get my hands technically dirty, and I will do this for a year. It's going to hurt. Financially, it's going to hurt. And I remember just eating top ramen and spam for almost a year, and which is not my favorite food anymore, and getting those technical chops, and then building upon that. And in that year, here's what I did is I found these small digital forensics training courses. Like, if not, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, both military and law enforcement backgrounds are highly coveted in the information security industry, and digital forensics falls under that. So, like Rico said, self-studying is great. Look for some CTFs, start following technical people on Twitter, LinkedIn. Every day I see links to podcasts you can watch, webinars. Again, there's CTFs. Also look for mentorship programs. Sometimes there is opportunity out there. Hey, we're looking for people who fit this mold. We'd like you to do some free training, and here's a free certification. So I would say just keep grinding. Eventually you'll make your way in.
Yeah. One of the things I saw, just because it's a requirement here in the United States, dude, you got to look outside, right? One of the companies that I was actually consulting for was in Dubai, and Dubai didn't have a lot of these stringent requirements. When I was consulting for another company in Singapore, didn't have these stringent requirements. They were like, dude, can you do the job? Yeah, cool, come on over, let's get to it. Versus in the United States, sometimes in Europe, sometimes in Canada, the 4-year degree seems to be that like, you know, the teeter point left or right, but at the same aspect, it doesn't define who you are. This is what you want. I understand that, and you will have the fortitude, will, and grit to actually make it happen.
Often these job postings also say, you know, they may say a 4-year degree or equivalent experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
and
know
then
that kind of,
you know,
and
and
it kind of brings it, that kind of brings, sorry, Rico, that kind of brings the chicken and egg, right? How can I get experience if I can't get a job? But that's where I think the free training and the certifications and the capture flags come in, because you actually you develop technical skills that would be the same as somebody who actually has been doing something for an amount of time. So when you get in the interview, you can talk to the artifacts, you can talk to the investigation process, you can talk to the stuff the same as someone who's been doing the job. And that's where you show that I meet the competency that of this degree or equivalent experience.
yeah. The other part is don't take no for an answer. Just because it says 12 years for and 2 master's degree for an entry level position doesn't mean it's right. Okay, pick up the phone. I've seen plenty of jobs posting. I'm like, what are you doing? Who wrote this? So don't take no for an answer. Reach out to that recruiter. Say, hey, just give me 5 minutes. Here's what I got. Here's who I am, and develop relationships with recruiters. I'm telling you right now, because you'll probably wind up in a position where you're like, man, I want to go beyond forensics, you know, and do something else.
Yeah, I get feedback too. You may not always get feedback on jobs or opportunities that you did not get, but ask for feedback. It may be something small. Maybe there's just one thing you missed, and you'll now know what you should study up on or prepare yourself for the next time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rico and Sean. That was a really, really good and informative answer. I'm sure our audience member David has now has more of a clearer idea on what path he should be taking for a career in digital forensics. Now, coming to the next question, it's from Tim. What is a good method to isolate or contain a host and still be able to work remotely on that host?
Good question.
So yeah, so I've seen a lot of tools can do that automatically, where if you put it like in a contain mode, it will lock down all the network communications except for the port that that tool or that endpoint agent uses to call back home. Um, Other things you can do is, you know, if you have access to the network, you can lock down network traffic through the firewall. You may be able to lock down port access through a switch. So just using technical controls or technical controls through an endpoint agent, you can lock down a host that way.
Very true. If you don't have the means to have like an agent deployed and you need to go on site, that's where you're gonna have to roll up your sleeves and you're gonna have to do things the manual way. I've seen it done a few times. I've seen where small hospitals actually get hit or have a near miss, and someone has to go on site and you have to do it. You have to figure it out. It's just kind of the way it's gonna be. So be able to do both. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yep, and then there's always the unplugging from the network.
Very true. Very true. The ultimate isolation.
Great, great. And now we are going to take the last question for the evening. The last question is from Yanni, and his question is, what are some of the pros and cons of working in DFIR?
Well, I can tell you about some pros and cons, and Sean, maybe you can help me out here too. So some of the pros
Absolutely.
is you're in the limelight. You're in the limelight. You are the go-to person. The CEO, the CIO, CTO, the CISO, and every other alphabet soup is going to come to you and is going to ask you questions like, "What happened? Show me what's up. Show me what's going on." Um, it's good. It's good. It builds character and it builds reputational rapport, professional rapport as well. The bad part is like a lot of late nights. A lot of late nights. Remember, you are a first responder. You are going to be there responding. You are getting in after it. So be mindful and be very acute that high pressure. Usually, this job only a lot of people don't last more than 2 years and they shift to something else. So if you meet somebody like Sean or myself who's been that for like 10 years, well, there's a lot of sleep deprivation. So, Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think my pros and cons are similar. Pros for me, it's a very technical field. It changes every day, so there's no shortage of information. You're always learning. You're always evolving. If that's something that interests you, it's a great and rewarding career field. Like Rico said, you're quite often in the limelight. If you like being in high pressure situations and being responsible to deliver to customers or internal stakeholders, it's great. This is a fulfilling career, and your days can go by super quick. Cons, there can be long hours. Um, that may not be as big of a deal for some as it is to others, but again, some of the pros can also be the cons, right? High pressure situation, you need to always be evolving. Um, High level of responsibility. So those are things that could be cons.
Yeah. One of the other cons from a legal perspective, especially if you're a solo practitioner, you better be right. You better be right. You better deliver. If not, if you're wrong, you have a big liability, and somebody might come sue you. So just if you're a solo practitioner, okay. But if you're working for somebody, there's a margin for error and whatnot. But that's the bigger con. If you're a solo practitioner, you better be right.
Yeah, on that legal side, there's people's freedoms could be hanging in the balance. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility there too, and you want to make sure that you get the evidence right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Rico and Sean. Now, this brings us to the end of our session today. I would again like to thank our lovely panelists today for such a great session and for answering all our questions. Thank you so much. And do you have any message for our audience before we sign off?
Sean, you want to go?
Yeah, I like to say thank you for joining. I hope you found some of the stuff informational. If some of your questions did not get answered, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or if you'd like. I'd be happy to answer some more questions since we're running out of time here. Um, and thank you for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll second that. Thank you very much for joining. It's an honor to be a panelist here. And just remember these two things, guys. Your response is your responsibility, and no matter what you do, you're your own first responder. So just remember that. Be in the game, be in the fight, and be awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. And with this, we end today's session. People who have answered, who have taken part in the poll, our concerned person will be getting in touch with you. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. You all may disconnect the line.